Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you all had a great weekend. I most certainly did, because Anchorage Brewing Company dropped the Cryptopsy collab brew. That's right, people. There is a Cryptopsy collab out there. You should absolutely head over to Anchorage Brewing Company and pick it up. It is aptly called Cryptopsy, and it is a new world Pilsner called Pilsner Supremacy. This is a Pilsner that has been double dry hopped with Mosaic hops, which is one of my favorite hops. It's absolutely stunning. You got some melon hints to it, but yet it finishes off with a super crisp cereal malty finish. It is absolutely stunning. 4.8%. I strongly suggest you head on over to Anchorage Brewing Company and pick it up. Very stoked to introduce today's Vox and Hops underrated gem. Today we have an excellent band from right here in Quebec. Their favorite beer is Through the Alps, Les Quatre Surfeurs de l'Apocalypso. Get ready, people. This is Not Enough from Upon Your Grave on today's Vox and Hops underrated gem.
Do you smell that? There's something wrong. Right. Here I'm left alone by my mind. Here I'm left alone by myself. Here I want to know if it's real. Then I never know. All my life I search for the sea that will set me free. All my life I've been ignorant of my own disease. I need to know.
What a great track. What a great band from right here in Quebec, where I am located. I love the bands that come out of Quebec. There's always something different about it, and that is absolutely true about Upon Your Grave. They have some new music which is coming up in 2021, so keep your eyes on them. If you enjoyed Not Enough, the Upon the Grave track, please check them out via the links which I have put in the description of this podcast. Today's Vox and Hops episode is brought to you by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal is Montreal's premier metal promoter. They normally put on a bunch of amazing shows all year long when there isn't a global pandemic. But not only that, they put on one of North America's sickest metal festivals. And trust me, people, when I say this, it's the absolute truth, because I have played just about every metal fest out there, and Heavy Montreal is up there with the best of them. I'm super stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox and Hops podcast. On today's episode, I'm super stoked to be with Dan Weyandt of ZAO. Here it is. This is Vox and Hops, episode number 210.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Dan Weyandt of ZAO. How you doing, Dan? Let's start with a very fun yet complex question. How have you been coping with this beautiful year of 2020?
Been doing all right, I guess, for in the grand scheme of everything going on. Doing well. Try to find the things I can't control or don't have control over and not worry about them, and the things I do, just try to focus and, family and work and things like that. And I'm not necessarily a PMA type of guy, but, just trying to stay positive and make use of the time. I primarily a tattoo artist for a living. And so from March until June, I wasn't able to work. In our state, it was we're lumped in with the health and wellness industry, which is like salons and barbers and such. So fortunately, my wife still worked throughout everything. So like I said, it kind of went through it with the attitude that things could have definitely been worse. You know what I mean? Or that type of, I guess that's all you can get through it. And it's definitely been interesting, man. I'm 43, and it's like wild to have a year where you're like, man, it's like, I've been alive a while, and all kinds of things you'd never expect to happen. And, so in some weird way, it's been kind of really eclectic and interesting, and just, it's almost like a surreal, like Twilight Zone episode or something, but I don't know.
I would like it to end sometimes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely things I miss and such. I guess it's just keep my head down, work. There's been some weird silver linings with beer, where some breweries that I've always chased after and things like that started doing like mail delivery. Go on the computer and get Other Half and Equilibrium Brewing delivered to my door for a short period of time. So look at the bright side. It's been decent on the beer end of things, and but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to. But at the same time, it's chaotic. I know if you have kids, we have to homeschool half the week, and everyone's still working, and that can get pretty stressful and such. But yeah, no, it's happy to have a minute to hang out and have a beer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. What beer do you have on your side there, Dan?
Well, picked, actually brought a couple just in case, didn't want to have to get up again. There's a local brewery in Pittsburgh called Cinderlands, and they did a collaboration with a brewery called Hop Butcher. They're up in the Chicago general area. It's the abbreviations of the states you drive through. So it's Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, PA.
That's cool.
And it's just an awesome, just a double hazy IPA. Hits all the marks, super soft, a little bit of kind of like pine resin presence. And then it has that nice kind of rounded like pineapple peach flavor, so everything good, man. It's a kind of nice light straw color.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, what about yourself?
Gorgeous. I have a Third Moon Brewing Company.
Oh, nice.
Out of Milton, Ontario. They are a young brewery, but they are just making the sickest metal
Yeah.
themed brews. I love it. It's something that is still in the infancy stages up here in Canada, having metal themed breweries. And Third Moon is up there with the best of them. This is Tranquility, a double IPA, 8.3%. Let me crack this open.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Nathan, who made sure that I got this in my hands, which I really appreciate. Let's just dance into your craft beer journey as I pour this out. Tell me about, let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about that first beer. Do you remember your first beer, Dan?
Yeah, well, I got into craft beer a weird way, but then I remember one of the first ones that really blew me away. I used to, the town I lived in, Greensburg, in my like mid 20s, going into my early 30s. Yeah, that looks good. I like that glass too, sir. It's very nice.
Yes, sir. Cheers.
Cheers. And there was a really cool bar called Red Star by my house, and it was kind of like they had like some bar food and some fancy food, and it was the first place in the early 2000s that we would go there just to hang out. And the only beer they served there was beer they made.
Mm.
So you had about 8 choices, and it was a while back, and that wasn't really something you saw much. And honestly, I went there, and I was, at the time, I drank mixed drinks if I would go out, and then so I started to get intrigued. And actually, one of the first beers I had that impressed me was a black IPA. I just thought it was such a wild. I'd had like, all these different things, and craft beer was still young. We used to get to like Victory and Trogs and things like that around here. And then, I started getting into it just from that, trying different beers. And the guy that was brewing those, he was very, there was a lot of like more like European traditional, he did a lot of like Dunkels and, you know what I mean, proper lagers and things and such. But so that was like my first thing into craft beer. We're going into a place where it's saying like, hey, we only make, our served beer that we make here. And they made this like super strong barley wine every Christmas. And then that was just like, got me into it enough to like say like, hey, there's like beer out there that's not just, the same old thing. And then met a couple friends, you know what I mean? Here and there, they'd go, friends that would go out to Philadelphia and New York City and places, and they would come back and have a beer. Like I remember bring back a heady topper or something like that. But one of the first, when I knew I was hooked, man, is I was 2016. It was right around New Year's, and my friend came back, and he was like, I got a beer from this place called Trillium, and it was in a big glass bottle, and it was a Congress Street. And he was like, wait till you see, when you pour it out, you can't even see through it. And, you know what I mean? And I remember we drank that. That was the first like proper kind of like unfiltered hazy beer I'd ever had. And ever since then, man, I've just been chasing the, you know what I mean? Next best one, I guess. But, like I get, all the lead ups, like having like Pliny, heady topper, all the kind of like, before the haze kind of, or New England thing hit, just the kind of like West Coast, the resinous beers. And then it took me a while, but I really like everything now. Actually, one of the other beers I poured out just to sip on was they did Anchorage Brewing did their 10-year. It's actually a cool label.
Very
it's
cool. Oh yeah.
It's just called 10 years, but it's actually a cuvee of bourbon barrel aged stouts and barley wines, and then they conditioned it on coconut, vanilla beans, cinnamon, and cacao nibs. So it's something to sip on the side, But
he's going back and forth. I love it.
Yeah. But usually if I have a couple beers at home, I'll open maybe like a stout in a small glass and drink an IPA and occasionally, you know what I mean? Just
That's interesting. That's an interesting idea, like a palate switcher upper.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And just to I don't know, I just enjoy. It took me a while to come around on like bigger stouts and wild ales, but eventually I just really liked everything, And the beer scene's got awesome around here. Pittsburgh was really rough even 5-6 years ago. Wasn't a lot of, anything too crazy going on locally. We had poor distribution in the sense of like not a lot of stuff landed here. Pass us up for Philly or going the other way, Cleveland or something. And we started getting some decent breweries, and we're starting to get good beers in, and now mail order and can order tired hands and all this stuff to your door. It's great,
It's I wish it would happen up here in Quebec at least. It's illegal still. The archaic beer laws are just killing the breweries up here, especially the small ones that don't have good distribution. So I'm rallying for it, and there's petitions, and I'm signing everyone. This is delicious. It has a dank, hoppy bite. It's slightly creamy. You don't feel the 8.3%, which is always a dangerous, fun thing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I love it. Third Moon Brewing Company, amazing. Let's dance into the soundtrack of your youth. When you were growing up in your parents' or guardian's house, what music was playing when you were not in control, Dan? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
It's nothing that crazy. My dad was always, my parents split up when I was young and I was mainly with my mom. My dad was a classic rock guy, kind of through and through. He was at Woodstock and things like that, you know, so he was kind of into, you know, the kind of core 60s, 70s stuff, you know, like anything, you know, from the Doors to Meatloaf to, you know, what have you. And actually when I was young living with my mom, we actually shared a house with my uncles for a long time, and they were in their early 20s, and they would just play like 80s music. And, you know, at the time it was the 80s though. So just like what was on the radio. And it wasn't, you know, and it was a station called B94 actually. And I still have a weird kind of whatever for some of that stuff. It's just like good memories or, you know, whatever, childhood. But in my, when I was about 11 or 12, that's when I started to make friends and meet people that started to introduce me. So I was fortunate to very young be introduced to a lot of pretty wild stuff. You know what I mean? I remember being 10 or 11, introduced to like Venom and things like that, you know what I mean, by a friend's brother. And then just that I was a skateboarder and started meeting kids out skating. And, you know, did you ever hear Napalm Death? Did you ever hear this? Or Sore Throat? I don't know if you ever heard of those guys. They were
No.
I believe they were from the UK. They were kind of like an old, it's like grind where it was, I remember my buddy had the record. It was like 100 songs on one LP type of deal, you know, like a 13-second type of the lyrics were the title of the song type of deal, you know. It was like, oh, what's this song called? And they'd be like, whatever. What are lyrics? Oh, it's just the title. They have enough time to say the title, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it was a mix of, I got into a lot of that early, and fortunate, a lot of punk rock too. Pittsburgh was more so in like the late 80s, I guess early 90s, what have you. It seemed to be a lot more of like a punk rock city, you know, as far as shows and stuff went. And we got to see some like pretty cool bands pretty young. I actually saw, there was a local band called Eviction, and I went to see them once. I was trying to think, I was in probably 5th or 6th grade. One of the bands came through and played with them was actually, no, it was maybe 7th, but Pantera. They hadn't put out Cowboys from Hell yet, and they just like played this like weird little, they still were in that like transitioning out of the metal phase a little bit. So I got to see like a weird just Pantera show when I was still in like middle school. We mainly went to see this band Eviction. They were a really popular Pittsburgh punk rock band back at the time. And there was a lot of cool like venues around here where you could go underage, and everything was underage. 13, 14, able to go see GBH and, you know, Subhumans and just weird stuff like that. And primarily because that's what was coming around the most. And then when I joined ZAO and we started touring, it wasn't until then where I really started seeing a lot of like, you know, bigger metal acts and things like that. So, but yeah, I know that was kind of a vague answer to your question, but I guess the true soundtrack wasn't that interesting. It was just radio, you know, whatever's on the radio, kind of pop radio at the time. And then that's not that exciting, I guess. But yeah, at a young age, I was introduced. And then my mom met a guy, and he had a son from a previous marriage. So, you know, he played guitar, was into like a Merciful Fate and things like that. So I was fortunate to, even though it wasn't like what my parents were listening to, was introduced to a lot of cool stuff at a, you know, young age, and was able to get my hands on it, and had friends that listened to it and make tapes and stuff, mix tapes back in the day.
That's amazing. You stemmed a lot of questions from that one answer, and I love it. First off, Meatloaf is metal as hell, and I love them.
Yeah.
Those album artworks are still fucking cool.
Yeah, no, that's when I'm a tattooer. And when I think back, it's like I remember being enamored by the Bat Out of Hell cover, just being like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I guess it's always one of the coolest things about actual vinyl, too, was getting to see those awesome, that awesome artwork and designs, like really big, and I see the more intricate details and things like that.
Which is the way they're supposed to be experienced, because looking at it, especially nowadays, looking at it on your phone. There's no justice to the artwork in it whatsoever.
Yeah. What was it, last year, I think, or the year before was the first year in history that vinyl outsold CDs or what have you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess no one buys CDs anymore. It's really not that. It's like, like physical. It's like
Yeah. I
or
get them on the road all the time, and I'm like, I have no way to listen to this at my house anymore.
yeah, or back when I got them more, you bring them home, burn them, and then put them away, and you know what I mean. It was like the actual physical CD went into a Tupperware or something, and
exactly.
Yeah, but sorry.
And then you stab, as you said, that you listened to the music of the '80s, which was the music of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And even now, when we think back to it, we all think back to the music of the '80s as basically the same 10 songs. We all name a song, and then we'll have that emotional resurgence that comes out. And I was wondering if in the future, for our kids, when they hit, are they going to say, oh yeah, the 2010s? It's not going to be the same soundtrack. That's something that's lost because of the vast expanse of music that's out there now. We're not all being, pummeled is the wrong word, with the same soundtrack anymore. It's different for everyone. So I wonder what that's going to be like in the future, if there will be even any like key songs as there are now, for us for the '80s.
My daughter is a little bit more of a radio person, where she's kind of more, she likes everything, but when we get in the car, she's kind of like whatever the popular stuff is. She's a little older and hangs out with her friends, and I think some of them listen to it and it's whatever. But my son is, when they were little, I would try not to necessarily say listen to this or listen to that. I would just play like weird varieties of music and see if they would latch on to things. And he really is into like he really latched on to like bands like Sleep and like Electric Wizard. He likes for some reason he really enjoys like that kind of more like slow, heavy, kind of like Sabbathy riffage type stuff. And trying to think what else. Wolf Mother, for some reason. There was a video game he had and had a Wolf Mother song in the beginning, and then he's like, "What's this?" And we found out now he wants to. So he's kind of into the fuzz rock, doom, stoner sludge stuff, I guess, a little bit. But and he's not as into the radio stuff. So I'd be curious to see what that kind of whatever. And he used to like real heavy stuff when he was young because he thought that the Hulk sang, like anything with like really like aggressive vocals. He was like, "Not the Hulk?" "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Yeah, put it on again." I'm like, so
my son is really into, I haven't said this on the podcast yet, I don't think, is really, really, really into Du Hast from Rammstein. That's his track. To the point where I was putting him to bed the other night. And he was upset that he was with me and not with his mother. And I put on Du Hast, and he stopped crying and fell asleep, which is just...
That's awesome. He's a German industrial taste.
I think it's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Take me to your first time on stage. Do you remember the first time you performed?
I'm trying to think. Man, some of that stuff's... I remember the first ZAO show I played. It was just at a fire hall. It was nerve-wracking. I had kind of came in. I'm trying to think, the very first show I ever played in like bands before that. I was always playing bass and stuff prior to that.
Was that terrifying, stepping out from behind the bass?
A little bit. Well, the scary thing about when I started in ZAO is they were established at the time. They had been a band for a while. And we had met them through, the scene wasn't as big back then. So we met them more through, like, we were one of those like local bands willing to open in like a 3-hour radius. Like, "Oh, you're playing here, you need someone to open? We'll drive out there and open for you," or, anything like that. And then they put out their first, had a few records out. They put out their first bigger record. And then after one of their first big tours, things kind of fell apart and the drummer restructured. So they just come off this like new release and all these things, and then I got involved, and now it's kind of like, all right, I hope you're as good as the guy before you that just recorded this record, and all this stuff. And it was a lot of pressure in that sense. But it's hard to explain, but even in this band, other bands, when I'm able to play, I'm able to kind of like go somewhere else a little bit. You know what I mean? I can't explain it, where I get up and I'm nervous and I'm like, I'm going to step out for a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like it happens. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Your reptilian brain takes over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just got to attack.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And it's, kind of just open the doors and let it happen. You know what I mean? And
were you ready that first show? I know for my first Cryptopsy show, I was barely ready. So were you ready?
Probably. No, probably not. You know what I mean? I practiced up and stuff, but I don't think you're ready. You know what I mean? It's hard because at first, you know, even if you're practiced up, you're more mechanical and just trying to do a good job versus like feeling it and being in there. So I feel like it's more that type of thing. You're kind of just like this, you know, the eggshell kind of mechanical approach at first, just being like, I just want to get up there and like remember lyrics and like sound okay. And it's not till later where you can kind of more just enjoy, yeah, and have fun and like play music as opposed to just like some kind of like nerve-wracking, you know, public experiment. I don't know if whatever you want to call it, but yeah, no, it's, and then yeah, no, it was good. It went over well. It was weird because I had a totally different vocal style from the guy behind me, or you know, before me. Let's say ahead of me, but in the sense of like he was more of like he had more of a traditional kind of like hardcore voice, I guess, and he had a lot of sustain. He could really like hit a note in like, I mean, like 20, 30 seconds, just like with power and whatever the whole time. And you're like sitting there like whatever. And I was more, you know, I was more influenced through, what's weird is I always got like a lot of like, people assume like it was kind of like patterning after like Carcass and things like that. But it was actually, I don't know if you remember, there was a band from the UK in like the early 90s. They were called Iron Monkey. They were just like a super ahead of their time sludge outfit. You know what I mean? Just like pummeling, kind of like brutal, like it fits more in that like kind of like a doom stoner stuff. And the singer just had this like ripping, just shredding high pitched voice, not quite black, like in the kind of realm of black metal, but with a lot more like kind of like a little oomph behind it, like power. His name is John Paul Morrow. He's one of my always been one of my favorites. And but that was one of my big approaches coming up. And there were some local bands that had singers that had like a similar approach. And so not only was I filling this guy's shoes, but my vocal style was like 180. You know what I mean? So it was like, well, not only did I hope they like me, but I hope they like a like pretty much completely different delivery, you know, of these vocals. And you know, there were definitely people I'm sure that weren't into it, but you know, overall it went well. And you know, it was kind of you know, ended up I guess people liked it or whatever, or accepted it at some point. You know, I don't know the proper.
You're still there, Dan. So everything's good.
Yeah, yeah. And
let's talk about vocals in general. Do you remember when you started screaming? Why you started screaming? Take me through to discovering harsh vocals.
There was just certain vocals I was drawn to. Like I said, there were some local bands I really liked. Like there was a really cool big local scene around here when I was like in high school and finishing up high school. I went to a technical school, which meant like I went to high school for half a day, you know, and then the other half a day I went to a trade school for graphic arts, graphic design. Wow. And it was I believe 8 school districts together. So what was cool was you went in and you would meet guys from all over, like different, you know, the county. And I met some friends, and they're like, hey, we have friends that are in bands. You know, if you want to hang out one weekend, we'll go check them out. And then started seeing there was like a little bit of a hardcore metal scene, industrial, really weird. It was a lot of mixed stuff back then. You'd go to a show and there'd be like an indie rock band and a death metal band, and you know what I mean? It was
just so they could play, you know, that they got to sell enough tickets, basically.
Yeah. And I was always in, like I said, that same style of vocal. And there was a few local bands. There's a band called Passover, and then up north there was Abnegation, and then I'm trying to remember what the name was of the Pre-Shadows Fall.
Overcast it was.
Yes. So it was all that kind of stuff. And at the time I was just playing bass, and you know, it's one of those things where I was playing bass in kind of a I guess like metalcore type band, and with Russ, who ended up being in ZAO, and then Steve, the drummer, who for way down the road for a brief period of time was too. But it's one of those things where, you know, at the shows I started saying, you know, you want a mic? You know, they'll usually ask like guitar player, you want a mic? And I'd say, yeah, you know what? And I just started like testing it out little bits at a time. You know what I mean? Just doing little backups, and then just over time I got comfortable, and I started doing it more and more. And then when we record, I would do a lot of backup vocals, and then that's kind of how I got my chance to try out. They're like, "Yeah, I like your backup vocals," and things like that, and then went to just doing just vocals. And ZAO was the first band I was ever in where I did just vocals. I never was just sang in a band before that. So yeah, it was crazy, man. It was one of those, just like everything happened fast, and you're just happy for opportunities, so you try your best, and
Hey, you always got to try, and you never know what's going to happen if you don't put yourself out there. So
yeah, and I guess it paid off, and still there were some ups and downs, but still doing it today. As much as you can today, I guess. But you know what I mean.
You guys were coming back, and the world just said, "No, you're not."
Yeah, we actually had a new record done, and we're sitting on it. Just gonna kind of wait until maybe next year, when, not even necessarily when you can tour, but just kind of hopefully things start to breathe a little bit, and you can. So it's kind of, we're all really excited about it. So it's kind of sitting on it a little bit, what have you. And we had some really cool shows. We don't tour a lot. It's primarily it's on me a little bit, but with the family and stuff, it's hard for me to go away for long periods of time because of like schedules and stuff with my wife. But we had some cool stuff lined up this summer, and that's probably the biggest bummer of everything, is not being able to see or play music.
Mm-hmm.
But and I don't know, I'm really curious to see what happens. A lot of small venues, the type of venues that we usually would play, seem to be kind of just slowly they're
closing up.
It seems like the theme of all this is like a lot of the kind of big corporate stuff is gonna make it because there's backing, and then a lot of the little things are kind of shriveling up, and you know what I mean, kind of going away, whether it's a restaurant or a venue or what have you. So curious to see when this is all over, where the bands like at our caliber can even get out and play.
That's true. That's very true. That's sad. That's true. And that's why Daniel DeFonce, who was booking Devastation on the Nation, he was one of the first people to postpone when Trump canceled all international flights back in March. And now he, again, is one of the first people to just say, "No, I'm not postponing it again. I'm canceling it. And we'll book it if we can in the future, because who knows if any of these venues that I've booked or reserved is even going to still exist." So another wise decision by Dan DeFonce, who I love.
Yeah, he's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were supposed to maybe drive down to play this festival, and I was talking to our drummer Jeff the other day, and supposedly to make it worthwhile, we were going to hit play some shows on the way down. And I hope I'm not mistaken, but I believe he said that like the routing we had to get down there, that most of those venues are closed now. So if we would try to do the same thing, like say in the summer, there's a chance, you know what I mean, that's like physically not possible to run that route again, you know what I mean? Which is like, for us, is what makes everything able to do. We try to always sneak in, extra shows and stuff to, just to make ends meet. And, you're not trying to necessarily make, we used to call it, you're not trying to make like money outside of just the money you would need to whether fill the void in the taking time off your, day job or you know what I mean, or just to cover your bills and stuff. So, it makes it hard sometimes to go out and just take a hit. But it's crazy because I guess that's what's wild about right now, is the uncertainty of everything, and I guess it's unprecedented in a sense. I feel like things like this have generally happened before, you know what I mean, in the sense of, pandemics and things like that. What was it, 1918 with the Spanish flu and all that, similar kind of general similarities, and in the sense of masks and social distancing and things being shut down. But I'm sure it'll happen again too. But this time and with what we have, this is I don't think really a lot of it's, no one really knows what to do or what to expect.
Our generation, it's just so new and scary, and uncertainty is scary, but we have to remain positive, and hopefully, history is not going to completely repeat itself and have prohibition coming up next, because that would make me very upset.
Yes.
You mentioned a new record. You guys are independent. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we do. We have our own label. in the sense of we just use our own label to operate as ourselves.
Perfect. Let's talk about that. Let's say the whole idea, because Cryptopsy was independent since 2012, and subsequently just this year we signed to a label. Let's talk about being independent and making that decision to go independent.
Well, it was one of our big things is we weren't able to tour a ton, and we felt bad because almost any label you get involved with obviously expects you to get out there a certain amount. So the first decisions of this were, you know, to be able to not be under any sort of pressure to, you know what I mean, fulfill anything. And so the label's called Observed Observer. Like I said, we don't sign other bands, we just put out our own content. And we try really hard to do everything like ahead of time. Like, so when we would tour, play shows, or when we sell prior releases or merchandise like t-shirts, we tend to not even give ourselves a lot, but put everything towards the next project. And it keeps everything self-funding. And we also run unanimously, so we don't actually make any, we don't do anything even if one member doesn't want to do it. So,
Cool.
You know, we were able to kind of operate like that, so to do a new record. And our drummer Jeff is the real driving force behind everything, as far as he's very business minded in the sense where he does a lot of the red tape stuff, and you know, and dealing with everything from dealing with like the pressing plants and so on and so forth. And but it's good, and it's not anyone's main income, so it's also, we're in a little different, you know what I mean, thing with that, where it's more like it just enables us to operate freely. It's not a big source of income per se, but it allows us to at least do the artistic side of it, you know, writing and recording and putting out content with, you know what I mean, without like having to fund it personally, and you know, doing okay. And then we're kind of partners with this place called Holy Mountain. They're a printing place, and Danny's awesome. He's the guy that runs it. And we kind of, they help us out. And, you know, when we put out a record, we kind of put it out. They do a lot of the shipping and, you know, which is the shittiest part. So. Yeah, they do the warehousing and the shipping, and you know what I mean, amazing. And all that. And then we put their logo on our stuff, and they're great. And we're proud to, you know, kind of represent them, or, you know, be in this with them, in the sense of they, you know, we, you know, get all our merch exclusively through them, and they do awesome work as far as screen printing and stuff. But Danny's even just personally, and it's rare actually, like, you know, it's cool to like text back and forth with him about, he's into certain things like, you know, comics and anime and stuff. It's cool. It's just like, he's like a cool guy. And so that's a big part of it too, because that allows us to, you know, it gives us a platform to, you know, not only get, you know, merchandise made, but to like warehouse it and ship it and everything like that. And so it's all these like weird little things that enable us to kind of do it kind of like low key and fun. But it's something you know, it takes up a good chunk of my week, whether you're recording or writing or dealing with something or this or that. So it's a lot. We just don't get out and play a ton, and we've been trying to record and put out a lot of content, more, you know, to make up for not being able to tour and things like that.
That must have been frustrating when you guys operate I'm not going to get this word. Say it for me.
That's right. Unanimously. Sorry.
Unanimously. I can say it. Unanimous. You guys operate unanimous. I can't say it.
That's right.
Everyone has to be on board when you guys make a decision. So it must have been difficult deciding to shelve this record, because a record is a baby. It's something that you've worked on very hard, and you want to share it with the fans, share it with the world, get it out there. So it must have been a difficult band meeting.
Yeah, no, and it was, but you know, we didn't want to. There was like some other, like, we try not to release stuff, and there's other big releases. We don't have a ton of money for advertising, so you know, if there's a lot of stuff coming out, we necessarily can't compete with that. So we usually wait for holes, and we were figuring. There was a couple other releases from bands in like certain genres that were coming out that were big, and then we also always screw ourselves. And this is weird, but you know, it's like if you release a record too close to the end of the year, you can never get on any of the album, like not album of the year, but you can never get on any of the good like reviewed up stuff. So it's like, we're not going to release something in December again and then get, you know what I mean? You almost get like, everyone's already wrote their lists, and I'm not saying we make that, but like even just little stuff like that, you know, just like, oh, wait till next year. And I would think maybe when, I don't know, when all this wraps up, I would imagine there's gonna be a ton of releases coming out. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are sitting around writing and,
Exactly.
you know,
It's
but
gonna be hell for record labels to schedule all this coming out.
I know.
Absolutely.
But,
Keep going, sir.
oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to talk a little bit more about craft beer.
Yeah.
Let's has ZAO ever made a beer, like a beer collab?
Yeah, we've done, well, we did one with our friend Pete from Against the Grain Brewing. They're in Louisville, Kentucky. We had a record come out, and had the well-intentioned virus, and there was we ended up doing a beer called Burned at the Stake, and it was like a smoked kind of pepper stout, sweet stout.
Very cool.
And it didn't get, it's kind of hard to explain. It didn't get officially bottled, but it came out in kegs, and we had like a release. And then we actually we didn't make a big announcement yet, but we have another we have a sour beer coming out with a brewery in Michigan. As soon as we can get some dates, we're going to announce that. But yeah, no, I love, it's awesome to be able to do beer collaborations. And do you guys have any? I didn't know if you.
Cryptopsy does. It's actually coming out very, very soon. It's not announced yet. I've done like something. I've gone live with the brewer on Instagram. Maybe by the time this is out, it's been announced and it's happening. It's with Anchorage Brewing Company here in Montreal, and it is called Cryptopsy, and it's a New World Pilsner called Pilsner Supremacy.
Nice.
So it's a double dry hop Pilsner. And mono mosaic hops. I'm stoked to taste it. The can art is a reimagining of the Whisper Supremacy artwork, hence the Pilsner Supremacy. I'm stoked about it. I can't wait to try it.
And that was my introduction album back in the day too. So you know what I mean? Well, it's a Cryptop. You know what I mean? Like my first like Cryptopsy introduction was Whisper Supremacy. We had a guy he had a label called Willow Tip. He had signed some local bands. I believe Creationist Crucifixion did some stuff with him, and there was a local band called Circle of Dead Children. Yeah. But he used to come with us and do merch. And remember when people had distros, he'd come and do merch and have a distro. But he was the first person that he'd come to your house, but did you ever hear this? Did you ever hear this? You know what I mean? And but yeah, that was the first. Whisper Supremacy was my first introduction, which was awesome. I was very excited when my friend David was mentioned this. I was like, yeah. No, he's like, would you want to do this? I'm like, of course. That's like, you know what I mean?
Amazing. Shout out to David Lay for hooking up this.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
I've known him for a very long time. He's always been around. But yeah, no, this other beer, it should be cool. I actually am kind of at a standstill because I don't know what I'm supposed to say or not say about it.
I understand. No
you know
worries
what I mean?
whatsoever.
We actually did it quite a while ago. What's nice is it's a proper wild ale, so it'll continue to condition. So it's not going flat or anything like that.
It's just the yeast is making it better and better.
But what was cool is we actually, so a couple of the guys in ZAO enjoy beer. Jeff, the drummer, I would say was second to me, is probably the most into stuff, and then Scott, and then Marty and Russ. One guy, Russ, is more of like actually wine drinker and so on and so forth. But it's really cool. This I do beer labels. It's one of the other things I do for a brewery back here called Insurrection Ale Works. I do all their just can art and label art and things like that. And the brewer there messaged me one day and said, "Hey, I got a brewer friend I met at a festival. He's interested in you guys. Would like to maybe do a beer collab." So we made some time on a run to stop by, and we got there, and he had probably like 20 some samples for each of us out, like little half-ounce pours. And the craziest part is some of the guys are into beer, some aren't, but he said, pick your 5 favorite, and we'll go from there. And we all picked the same 5. It was crazy. Wow. Yeah. So it's going to be it's a little bit of it's a golden sour. It has a tiny bit of gin barrel, some cherry, a little bit of vanilla, a couple other things. It's a nice, it's something that's not so crazy that maybe someone that's not really into beer would, be kind of like off put by, but I also feel like it's someone that that likes wild ales especially would enjoy the subtleties of the flavors. But it came out really good, and I'm excited. It's kind of been sitting on it, same thing. Cool. As soon as we're able to announce some stuff, it's kind of and not on purpose, this, it kind of coincides with one of the singles we might release, you know, when we're able to get something out there. So we're probably going to try to like kind of have a multiple, you know, release a single, kind of announce the beer, try to have everyone benefit. And but yeah, what's your favorite styles? I've listened to some of the shows, but as far as I know, because I have, you know, I like everything a little bit. But
I'm right there with you. I love them all. I really, really enjoy the Crispy Boys, the resurgence of the Pilsners and Lagers, the Kolsch's. Montreal's really getting really hot for that right now. I also enjoy the smoothie sours, which is like all the rage from this place up here, Pub Brewski. They make
nice.
killer smoothie sours, which is basically fruit puree.
Yeah, that's the other.
That's the other beer you have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to catch up.
Mixed with a kettle sour beer, delicious. And then I love, of course, you know, the Hazy Boys.
Yeah,
just killing it up here. Finally, we were a little bit late up here in Montreal getting on the haze craze. We liked it, but it took a long time for brewers to finally start nailing it. But now everyone is on track. And then, of course, the big stouts. I feel like our sour game is not there yet. There's nobody that's really nailing those complex wild ale sours yet. There's a few places. I'll give a shout out to Avant-Garde Brasserie Artisanale that has nailed that, but I would like to see more in the style that's coming out in the States that's really just much more complex and like exactly like that beer that you were describing before.
But do you guys get, from what I understand, because I had a friend that used to go back and forth, do you guys see like distribution of things like Cantillon and things like that up there at all?
There's imports that come through, but it comes through our liquor store, and there's private import people that bring them in and then they announce them and sell them in the liquor store. But you can't just get them. It's very, very difficult. And when you do get them, they're hit or miss, depending on how long they've been in a boat coming across the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I like haze. It's crazy because when I first got into beer, and I liked IPAs from the very beginning. And there was this part of me that was like, I wish, you know, some of the astringent kind of alcohol bite would go down, maybe a tiny bit of the bitterness. I don't always dislike bitterness, but like sometimes that bitterness mixed with like a higher ABV West Coast, I don't almost get like that like that astringent alcohol, like actually like rubbing alcohol almost type of flavor. So it's always like, you know what, I wish like you could get rid of a little bit of that astringency and kind of like bitterness and maybe replace it with some softness and more hop presence. And then when I had that first trillium, I'm like this is what this is what I've always kind of in my head pictured. So I've been on board with all the hazy stuff since the beginning. And right when I got into it, there was one of the first places around here was called the Brew Gentleman. We're making some fantastic ones. And then I have a lot of friends that now even that'll run out, they'll be like, I'm going to drive 4 hours and grab a couple cases and drive back, and they'll go, somewhere and grab some good stuff. But I love the fruity, like the fruit smoothie stuff too. There's a place in outside of Philly called Imprint, but one of my new favorite places, they're called messaged them today on the correct pronunciation because I wasn't sure, but they're called Mortalis.
I've definitely heard that name, yeah.
But they have these hydras. This is raspberry, blackberry, strawberry, marshmallow, walnut, maple.
And I've heard that it's the #1 smoothie.
They're great.
Am I right?
Yeah. And what I'll say is like with hazy beers and like pastry stouts and things, like I feel like sometimes they get a bad rap because people act like, if you put fruit or, like in a stout, like a vanilla or marshmallows or, hazy beers, like that it's just easy. And I'm like, well, I've had a lot of terrible beers in that style. You know what I mean? I've had bad stouts with a million things in it. And, so it's like, when you get a good one that nails it, it's, I don't think it's whatever, but I appreciate it. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And, that comes back to the law of purity mentality and the old school brewers that are just being obfuscated with the new creative angles where beer is becoming closer to cooking. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like as opposed to just following the law with the same 3 ingredients and then changing it. So it's people are getting very, I mean, up here in Montreal, the haze craze made the old school brewers very upset.
No, it's the same here. I think the other thing that kind of I don't know, the other part about that stings is they sell like crazy. I mean, that's
exactly
as a brewery trying to make money off of consumers, you have to and I'm just saying, I'm not saying I know this, you know, I know of breweries that, I was told a story about, you know, there's the popular brewery Monkish out on the West Coast that, you know, they were Monkish. They were like a sour Belgian brewery, and they really never did the hazy stuff. And, you know, they started doing it, and, you know, blew up and allowed them to do everything, you know, they wanted to. And I feel like, you know, anymore, it's like, that's, you know, if you want to make them and you make them well, that's where the money is. And then you can do the things you wanted to do, you know,
exactly
not on the side. And Monkish sours were fantastic. I was fortunate to go there once, and I had a couple hazy beers, and then I actually, their sours were probably even more impressive. You know what I mean? So it was really cool to be like, to get to try that. But no, it makes the other thing I noticed is all the brewers I know, they all drink like, just like lagers, you know what I mean? You'll go hang out and they have access to all these crazy beers, and not only that they made, but the things you would like pick up from, you know, like, hey man, here's a bottle of this, try this or whatever. And a lot of those guys I know, they're, you know, just drinking.
Just like the simple beer, the pleasures of beer, just those three ingredients.
Yeah.
And there's an art to it, and they do appreciate it. And I as you were mentioning that people have to make haze so that they can pay for their personal pet projects. It makes me think of if we were artists and we went out and we started recording pop songs to pay for our projects, how we would feel about that. So I can understand how these old school brewers get frustrated.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is I used to there was an old cartoon on Liquid Television on MTV, and they made it into a movie that wasn't very good, but Eon Flux. It was an old cartoon, started on Liquid TV and had a couple you know, seasons. It's one of my favorite. The movie wasn't very good. I kind of knew that the second they announced they're going to make a movie of it. But what's crazy is Peter Chung, the animator that did Eon Flux, he made all his money by doing Rugrats, the kids show on Nickelodeon. So you know what I mean? It's
exactly like that.
And hey, there's you know, if you're a brewer and you got to do this one thing to make it, it's better than having to do some other outside 9-to-5 mundane thing. You know, like I'd rather draw a kid's cartoon to fund my cool cartoons than, you know what I mean, go do, I don't know, dig ditches or something. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
At least you're still, you know, or if you're writing pop songs, you're like, at least I'm in a studio, and you know what I mean? Like
at least
having
you're
instruments in my, you know.
creative. Well, I wanted to talk about you being an artist and being a tattoo artist. I didn't know you designed beer labels. So that's very, very cool. Take me to you being young. Were you always someone that drew? Is it something that was just something that happened to you? Like you picked up a pair something in your hand and you started making stuff right away?
I always, from as young as I could, like to draw, and I tried my best. And I think the biggest pushes for the things that made me want to draw and like create art was record covers and posters. You know, whether it be like even when I was young and into Iron Maiden. I mean, I always thought that was the coolest thing that they. I'm drawing a blank on his name, which I'm embarrassed, but you know, like all the different Eddies, like whether it's like Power Slave or Aces High, I always thought it was cool that there was this character and this like amazing art, and then skateboard art as well in comics, and I just kept pushing, and I didn't actually take much interest in tattoos until my the drummer ZAO, and he was the first person I know that had like really nice kind of like custom stuff, and I was kind of like, I've never seen tattoos like that before. And I actually did art my whole life, and around the time I joined the band, I had gotten really discouraged. I kind of had this like fire in my youth of like getting older and getting involved with a skateboard company or doing art for something like that. And I got to that like 18 or 19, and it was just like, you know, and it's not like it is today, I guess, where you have like social media and there's all these outlets and ways to meet people. And I just kind of hit this wall and was like, I don't have any outlets. I don't know what I would do. And I kind of like put my pencils down and stuff for a while. And it wasn't until I met Jesse and then started going to some tattoo shops, and that art kind of like, some of it reminded me of like the art that inspired me in my past. And that's where I kind of like found my, I guess, you know, drive again to create like, you know, visual arts. And then I was fortunate to early on, a guy that I was getting a lot of work from ended up apprenticing me, and I got my foot in the door and was lucky to get in some good shops out in the general area where I live, and was able to kind of learn and grow. But yeah, it all goes back to, you know, it all kind of comes full circle with like music and album art and, you know, tattoos and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's pretty cool. I'm thankful that kind of just didn't, that never would have happened. I don't know. Might have never picked a pencil up again. Who knows? Or
That's
I don't know.
crazy. Hey, life is beautiful.
Yeah.
Every decision guides us somewhere. So we always have to put, you know, just take that chance. You never know. You never know. Had you not said, yeah, throw that mic up, I'm going to scream backups.
Yep.
At those early shows, you know, you would have never gotten there at all. It's amazing. I love it.
And that's the one thing I've always tried to put myself out there any opportunity I got. Like, I have actually pretty bad anxiety too. So even little things I get, you know, whatever, and I still just, I'll agree and then see it through. You know what I mean? Even things like this, not that it's anything, whatever, but I'm always worried, like, you know, I'm sure everybody's worried about saying something stupid or sounding, you know, listening back and being like, what am I talking about? Or sounding redundant. I also sometimes I have trouble, as soon as I go to recall something, it's like I'll get this like anxious shutdown, like a name, like, oh yeah, my best friend growing up, his name was.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know.
And then you're
like,
gonna finish this, and you're like, the artist that did Iron Maiden is blah blah blah.
Yeah. Or it's like, you know, like my favorite singer was that guy in that band, you know, whatever. His name was, you know, and you're like,
yeah.
It's like, I guess, and a few people are like, oh, your favorite singer, huh? Can't even remember his name. It's like, yeah, it's like, you know, what have you, but.
That's amazing.
But yeah, hopefully if we ever make it up there, if I can get some stuff up with me, I'll bring you some.
Same.
You know what I mean? Some whatever. Are you able to get anything up there, like any of the like kind of like mail order stuff at all, or no?
No, completely illegal. And there is, of course, the whole illicit beer trade system that goes on clandestinely, which is illegal. People, I don't suggest you do it because it is illegal, but it happens. Let's wrap this up with one last question, a classic wrap-up question at this point. What is your hangover cure? It probably doesn't happen because you have young kids, you're in control, but every once in a while we have one too many.
Usually sounds weird, but I find like trying to find one way or another to sweat it out a little bit, which is whether crank the shower up hot and sit in the bathroom, you know what I mean? And then anything with raw ginger in it, you know what I mean? Like I found when I was on our honeymoon, we were in Hawaii, and I was able to buy this just like straight ginger drink. But the closest thing I can find back here is it's actually a kombucha. It's like this thick with ginger kombucha, and I feel like if I can wake up, and even if I don't eat much, if I can, you know, in the summer or something, if I can go do a little bit of yard work or something, sweat it out, have some ginger. It seems to be the you know, sweat some of the toxins out and replace it with some ginger. Feels really good on the stomach. And but yeah, and I try to, it's crazy, man. Anymore I hit a wall. I'm not saying I don't have too much every once in a while, but one nice thing about heavy craft beer is sometimes when you get to that point where maybe you're taking on too much, or you're really gonna whatever, it's almost like you know, it's like you know, I'm gonna shut my eyes for a minute or something before I can get too, you know, into trouble. But
that's amazing. You have a self-defense mechanism. I love it.
Yeah.
Dan, thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you.
Having a chat with me, talking about your life, music, and of course, beautiful craft beers. I'm stoked for that new ZAO record, which will come out as soon as it can. And I'm sure everyone else is listening as well. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, sir.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. What a great chat. I had such a great time with Dan. What a great craft beer friend. I know that we are going to sit down and share craft beer together right after the apocalypse is finished. I am super looking forward to that. I'm also super looking forward to that new ZAO record, which they're waiting to release. You should absolutely hit them up and tell them to drop it because you guys are super stoked to hear it as well. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should absolutely go and subscribe to it on the podcast platform of your choice. But not only that, take the time to rate it and write a review, because if you do that, more people just like yourself will discover the Vox and Hops podcast. Vox and Hops is brought to you by Sound Talent Media. I have 2 more episodes dropping this week. That's right. This coming Thursday, I have the very special live Thirsty Thursday interview, which I conducted last week with Andrew Garrity. This is the 3rd time that Andrew Garrity has been on Vox and Hops, and if you've listened to any of his previous episodes, you know that he is always a riot. But until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.